Shalom. Welcome to the Jewish View. My name is Rabbi Nachman Simon with the Chabadis of Delmar, and together with my co-host Mark Ronich with jbiztechvalley.com and Statewide News, we have a very special guest with us, Chris Higgins, who's an Albany County Legislator. Chris, welcome to the Jewish View.
Well, thank you for having me, Rabbi.
Welcome, Chris. I think you've been on before.
Yes, Mark, it's a pleasure to be back.
Okay, beautiful. So, what's new?
What is
A new budget or a new
county budget. Let's talk about county budget first.
Yeah, well, the county executive released his budget several weeks ago. Well, for the first time since...
No, the total budget.
$566 million, I believe.
So a $500 million budget.
Yes, it's quite large.
Well, depends.
So, well, we're one of the larger upstate counties.
Okay.
But for the first time since Daniel McCoy became the new county executive, we are under the tax cap, so that's very exciting.
Well, how did that happen? I mean, all of a sudden the economy is better, or more taxes? I mean, either which way. Or...
It's an interesting question, Rabbi, and it's a combination of factors. An increase in local sales tax in the county, as well as increased mortgage recording taxes that the county is taking in, and also jiggling and rejiggering the numbers pertaining to the nursing home and the operation of the nursing home. What the county executive has done in order to reduce the budget total allotment was fund the nursing home for only 6 months next year instead of an entire year, which greatly reduced the appropriation amount that would be necessary. So by doing that, he's been able to bring in the budget at a 1.60% tax increase, which is under the state mandated cap of 1.66. So
I thought it was 2%.
Well, it's technically 2%, but the tax cap is adjusted on a year-to-year basis by a variety of factors, and this year it's actually lower for our specific county. Lower than 2% technically, but he's still under it. It's going to be a very modest tax increase of approximately $18 on an annual family with a home valued at $150,000.
$150,000.
Yep.
Because most of the times they value it in a $100,000 home.
Yeah, I don't know where he came up with that number.
No, Bethlehem is valuing their assessment on $250,000 homes. So I don't, it's now changing. I guess houses are always more costly, so they're upping that amount of where they're evaluating from.
Sure.
Well, would you say Albany County is doing better with business? I mean, on the overall, like sales tax, then it must be getting better if more business is being generated, if there's more taxes.
And, to kind of pull the lens back and look at the county's financial situation as compared to the city of Albany, where I live. I represent a district within the boundary of the city of Albany. Our tax base at the county level is much wider. You have a lot of development going on right now in Colony, for example, out off Route 9, as well as off of Wolf Road, that's helping with the commercial and the county sales tax base that we're working off of, which has been very helpful.
And are the hill towns doing any better with economic development and businesses?
I mean, they're so small.
Generally speaking.
A lot of that is small business. There are, in fact, a lot of farms out in that area. I can't speak to the actual town budget.
But it's Colony that's really making the difference.
Colony, there's some additional development in Bethlehem and Slingerlands that's going on that's helping, certainly.
But what someone told me that, let's say, because I live in Delmar, Bethlehem, so if I buy something there, I'm helping Delmar, but really not. The sales tax, I mean, let's say, I'm going to buy in Delmar instead of Albany, so I'm going to help Delmar out. Really, it's a misnomer. It's really just goes all the way to the Albany County. You're not helping, maybe helping the business stay in business, but not the sales tax. I'll give my sales tax to Delmar instead of buying something in Albany.
You bring up an interesting point, Rabbi. The way the local sales tax works is the county gets all of the money from the state for the local sales tax. And then we take that number, that pot of sales tax money, and we apportion it to all the different municipalities in Albany County based on a population of each respective town or city. So Albany obviously gets the biggest slice. Colony, Bethlehem, and Guilderland get the second, third, and fourth biggest slices, and it's based off population. Now, what the county keeps of that 100%, the county keeps 40% of it. And 60% of
this is of sales tax.
Of sales tax money, and 60% is given right back to those local municipalities where you buy your coffee or your gas or your clothing. So it's.
But ultimately, if I buy you know, a $10 gas or whatever in Delmar, I'm not helping Delmar except for, I mean, keeping the guy in business. But it's not, oh, my zero, I want my sales tax, you know, whatever, the dollar. I'm just saying on a small percentage.
Yeah, no.
But, oh, my dollar is going to go to Delmar now because sales tax, I bought it in Delmar. It doesn't really work that way at all.
No, I mean, Delmar is always going to get, you know,
It's
their
percentage whether you bought it in Albany or in Delmar.
You got it. And that's and consequently, it's one of the most generous sales tax sharing formulas that any municipality, county-wise, in the state of New York, gives to its local
Why?
municipalities.
How else would they?
Well, for instance, in Dutchess County, that county keeps...
His father was the chairman of the county legislature, so he knows about Dutchess County.
Yeah,
Right.
that county, and this is all discretionary, but the county itself, the county government keeps 80% of the sales tax and only remits 20% to local municipalities there. And in Suffolk County keeps 99% of sales tax revenues and only gives 1% back to local municipalities within its county. So it's
But that 1% in Suffolk County is more than what we're giving back at 40% in real dollars.
Well, it's a very large county.
It is, and it's not just a large county, but it's a very wealthy county, especially when you talk about the Hamptons and that sort of some of the other areas of Suffolk County.
Sure.
So.
The point being is the county is very generous to the municipalities
on a percentage basis.
On a percentage basis.
So let me ask you this about the budget. You know, I was sitting, you know, a couple of years ago or last year, we're talking about many years of having either double-digit or very close to double-digit tax increases.
That's
that there was never going to be. It would take 5 years. I mean, the county executive said it would take about 5 years for us to be under the 2% cap. I was like, all of a sudden, you know, you jiggle the numbers as you said,
yeah,
and all of a sudden it comes down to 1.6%. That's a lot of jiggling.
Sure. Well, the county executive's logic in deciding to fund the nursing home for only 6 months goes back to this notion that as a policy idea in development, we would spin the nursing home off the county into a local development corporation that will be formed, which will exclusively be charged with running the nursing home, so to speak, hopefully removing the politics from what has turned into a political football over the last, not just 1 year, but several years.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, the county executive charges the nursing home loses $1.2 million a month. That's over $12 million a year, on top of what we're able to bring in from federal Medicaid dollars for operating it. And so his idea is if the LDC takes this over, it's going to greatly relieve the financial stress that the nursing home places on the county.
Are you in favor of that?
Yeah, I don't think it's necessarily a bad idea. I think I was supportive of the county executive's first proposal to privatize the nursing home. I didn't think that was a terrible idea. I had some grave concerns about it, and unfortunately we never got to flesh it out nor vote on it. And the county executive eventually decided that he would agree with the legislature to take this nursing home and go in a different direction, which is the LDC. And quite frankly, I think depoliticizing this issue and finding some folks who can run it professionally is not only best for the residents out there who should be considering first and foremost, but it's best for the taxpayers who have to pay for the nursing home. I think a more philosophical issue you bring up is whether or not the county, whether or not we as a county or as a state or nation should continue to be in the business of long-term care. You know,
what do you think about it?
Well, deinstitutionalizing folks. As far as mental health is concerned, that is, the Supreme Court has said that is the wave of the future. That is what we should be doing. That's what the federal government is emphasizing states to do. And I believe, as far as long-term care is concerned, and Michael Breslin, the previous county executive, he had a very strong belief about this. We should be keeping seniors in their homes and providing them with the tools necessary so that they don't have to go to a nursing home.
That would be more economically efficient also?
Correct. It's much cheaper to provide folks with Meals on Wheels or assisted living or home health care than it is to institutionalize someone in a nursing home. It's incredibly much more expensive.
Have you been out to visit the nursing home?
I have.
I mean, not to say that you're anywhere near being there, but
Yeah, I have visited the nursing home, and you know some of the problems we have with the nursing home. For example, when the Berger Commission, which was a state-mandated healthcare commission, came in and looked at long-term care facilities statewide, they made Albany County downsize. You know, we used to have 2 nursing homes,
Right.
county-run. They required the county to close one.
the Ann Lee home.
Ann Lee, that's correct, Mark, and then downsize the county nursing home from 500 beds to 250. So now we're down to 250 beds in a facility that is capable of heating 500 beds. And the facility, you know, is several decades old now.
Yeah.
We still have to heat the entire building.
Right.
We still have to provide maintenance in the entire building,
Right.
make sure it's clean, structurally sound.
Well,
And these things all cost money.
Apparently, the new director who's been chosen has a plan to make all that good again, you know, to make it energy efficient, and we're going to change the lighting and make it more profitable. I think he said maybe within 18 months or so.
Sure, that is one. In the county legislature, you know, we've brought in some consultants to look at different consolidations and cost savings factors that we could implement out there to save money. And certainly, Mr. Slotky, who runs Nassau County's healthcare facilities, he has expressed to the county legislature he believes he can find significant savings out there to take the facility and turn it from the red into the black. But obviously that remains to be seen, because all this is on hold as the plans to spin the actual nursing home off from the county's financial
Are you skeptical
plan.
or optimistic?
We had counsel and bond counsel recently to talk about some of the specifics. I think there's, for me, I had some concerns I expressed about transferring the certificate of need from the county over to the LDC. This would be a case of first impression statewide. Would the Department of Health find that to be acceptable and actually sign off on transferring
Interesting.
the certificate of need from the county to an LDC that's quote unquote independently operated? I think that's a major issue that I've asked for additional information on, and I have a major concern about spinning the actual asset, the real property itself, off the county's, you know, it's a county facility. We own that land out by the airport where the nursing home is, transferring that deed over to the actual LDC. How is that going to work? Are we going to retain a right of reverter on that? Because it's very valuable land.
Yes, and not only that, but it'll be on the tax rolls now.
Well, and that you bring up another question that I asked. Would the LDC be taxable or not? Because right now it's a county-run facility. We are not collecting taxes on that. If the nursing home is spun off to the LDC, I believe technically they have to pay taxes on that
That's right.
land, which is a totally different scenario.
As it should be.
And certainly, how do you pay for that? Another question. Then we have issues.
Who pays? I mean, how does the county nursing home pay for it?
How does the local development corporation pay those additional taxes now, which would
They
be
pay
in the hundreds of
because he's
thousands of
going to do
dollars?
magic and turn the operation around and make it something that is going to be profitable. So he'll be able to pay the taxes when it's profitable.
Again, all that remains to be seen.
It's magical.
How much does the county lose now, going back maybe to the more basic idea on the nursing home?
Loses $1 million a month.
Yeah, it's a,
Really that much?
Well, he says 1.2, but the county executive is saying $1 million doesn't round
That's a
up.
lot.
and the county controller
And
might
someone
go,
can turn that around and to put that
And we're going to have the
profit?
county controller on later, and
well,
yeah.
he believes the nursing home loses approximately $780,000 a month. So there's a $500,000 swing in these numbers
mere
here.
pittance every month.
So,
You know, it's
yeah.
a mere pittance.
Tell that to the taxpayer.
I meant it sarcastically.
Sure, of course.
Yeah, of course.
But it's it's the single largest issue that the county legislature has been struggling with over the last several years. And if we're going to go through the route of forming this local development corporation,
Okay.
we have to take our time and we have to get it right the first time.
Right. Not to have the a website snafu like we see in other healthcare
Sure.
operations. Okay, let me ask you this other question. Are there other parts of the budget that you're skeptical about? You've now had about a couple of weeks to look it over. You know, are you skeptical? Are you looking? Can you have even more savings? Could there be a tax reduction possibly? I mean, you know, can you do some magic here?
Sure. Some of the other interesting issues. In order to drive down that number, the county executive, he did not fill 42 vacancies in the budget. 21
good.
at the nursing home, 21 at the jail for correction officers
Okay.
and staff out there. The county employs what's called a vacancy factor in its budgeting.
That's right.
Where we fund vacant lines.
Well, the state does too.
Yep,
Yeah.
and we are not doing that, and we have eliminated those positions entirely in order to reduce costs. So that's something we're certainly going to take a look at.
Well, you may want to restore some of those lines.
The sheriff has signed off on this,
Yeah.
but I know the majority leader and the chairman are interested in looking at whether or not the nursing home can operate with a reduced staffing level, with those
Well,
lines being vacant.
If it should be increased, let the LDC decide later on whether they should be increased.
Sure.
But these were vacant lines. They haven't been filled in years.
Well, that's not necessarily true. Some people retire, but the
Right.
line stays the same over the course of a year. So people come and go. Some lines get filled, others do not.
But most of those lines have been vacant for many years.
Yeah, I don't want to say most of them, but some of them certainly.
Okay.
But that's something that occurred in the budget to drive down costs. And then also, what I was very happy about, we've managed to increase our county's reserve fund up to almost $29 million now, which
Well-
is a tremendous increase considering we were down around $17 million several years ago during the Great Recession when we were dipping into those reserves to help balance our books.
Well, the county clerk who's retiring, Tom Klingon, he was on the show and he said he gave the county back $500,000 that he sort of didn't have any use for.
Sure.
I mean,
The county clerk-
maybe he could have filled some of those vacant lines with his $500,000.
The county clerk, to his credit, he has one of the few revenue-generating departments in county government, and he's able to generate a significant amount of money based on...
Well, when you talk about the mortgage recording tax, that
Sure.
goes through the county clerk's office,
Yep.
and that was part
And
of...
he has other various filing fees
Right.
for legal documents and paperwork and things. So he runs a very tight ship out there, and I give him a lot of credit. And certainly, it's been a pleasure to work with him.
Yeah.
We're going to miss him. The Albany County community is going to miss him.
Maybe
very
there'll be
much.
something, the next one might be better and
Sure.
or just as efficient, you just never know.
Only time
You know,
will tell.
And memories are short, so if you're very happy with the next county clerk, you may say, Tom who?
Yeah, no, that's true.
So right now you're happy that, or you're sad to see him go, you're happy with the job that he did, but, are there other parts of the budget that, there are some people and there are some circles that say county government doesn't need to exist. That you can eliminate county government totally, and you just keep everything on the local level and then on the state level, and you don't need county resources.
See, I would disagree with that, and I would
No.
say you would need county government more than local government.
Mhm.
And I'll give you a good example of that. In the hill towns, Bern, Knox, Westerlo, Queens, Rensselaerville, they don't have village or town sheriffs policing their
Mhm.
respective municipalities. The county provides that role for them, right?
Mhm.
So that's a good example. I think in a lot of areas, you could certainly consolidate services between the different layers of government to
Mhm.
save significant amount of money. And we're doing that right now with our E911 facilities.
Okay.
We're consolidating those with various municipalities to save money. And also one of the other things the county's doing to save money is we are revamping our entire wireless radio network that's used between different fire departments, police departments, paramedics. And that's going to be all on one level, so to speak. So we're not going to have individual contracts and individual municipalities for different emergency services who are on their own network, so to speak. And that's a product of evolving technology.
So when there's a disaster, one of the problems with 9/11 is that they
Just hit the
couldn't
nail on the head.
communicate
Yep.
with each other, and one agency didn't know what the other agency is doing, and they had all sorts of problems. So I guess, obviously we've never had anything on that scale. No one ever has. But but if we ever did, God forbid, that would be something that we would be that much more ready for.
And certainly that's aside from saving money in the long run by consolidating these into one network, you're hitting a major benefit here to the public. If a disaster strikes, everybody's on the same page rather than different networks and wireless frequencies. But
Now
that's another example. The county
Now
executive...
we got to try it out without having a disaster to make sure that, you know, we got to make a mock disaster. Maybe the state legislatures, when they're coming back, that could be a disaster. Oh, look at that. I'm sorry. I joke. I jest.
That's okay. But certainly, you know, you asked about the budget. I think one of the major concerns I have is the continued amount of money that we amortize for retirement costs. That's something, you know, I believe it's about $30 million in the budget. We're going to have to take a hard look at that because, you know, over the long run, you know, stretching those costs out, you're just doing yourself a disservice because it just builds and builds and builds. So that's something I'm very hopeful as we begin the process of going through department. And tonight we're going to do revenue in the Audit and Finance Committee at 7 o'clock.
Oh, good.
So
revenue.
Yeah.
Okay.
Certainly that's something we're going to take a good hard look at is amortizing those costs.
All right. Let me ask you more parochially about your area. Tell me the neighborhoods that you represent.
Sure. Well, we're actually just outside of my district now. I represent all of downtown Albany.
Well, no one knows where that is because we're in a bunker here. And no one knows where we are.
I represent all in the city of Albany, primarily the downtown neighborhoods of Center Square, Hudson Park, Park South, Washington Park, in the Mansion neighborhood, which is primarily bounded by Madison Avenue and Washington Avenue going west towards the Hudson River, and surrounding the Washington Park area, which is all historical districts.
So is the executive mansion in your district?
Yes, I represent the governor's mansion.
So when the governor needs something done locally, does he pick up the phone and call you and say, "Hey, Chris, get on it"?
I've never been called by the governor per se about a pothole or some concern about, you know, his driveway or anything like that. But no, that is in my district. I think I have one of the most unique districts. It's certainly one of the most diverse districts in the county legislature, and it's also the most concentrated population size. I have probably one of the smallest districts because many of my constituents, land-wise, because many of my constituents live in apartment buildings, historic brownstones that are renovated to be apartments. So it makes for easy door knocking and certainly communication, walking around and talking to folks.
So let me just ask you this quickly about Park South, because that's all being redeveloped. Are you in favor of it? Do you like the direction it's going in? Are you skeptical?
Sure. The urban renewal plan that you're referring to that would greatly change the landscape of Park South, which is next to Washington Park, you know, that was enacted right when I was coming into office, and that would happen at the city level of government. The city council.
I know, but that's why I'm asking you as a resident and someone who's affected by this. Generally speaking, are you in favor of this urban renewal?
Yeah, the plan itself.
Where is this exactly? So I mean,
Myrtle
Avenue,
Morris Avenue,
Albany
Park,
Med?
Albany Med. What Albany Med is
Myrtle
renovating.
to Madison,
Right.
Delaware to South Lake. It's that little piece of land.
And what did they want to do with that?
They want to tear down homes and put up office buildings and some apartments and also some commercial on the first floor.
And arguably, it will be the biggest economic development project I think you will have seen in the city since construction of the plaza. I think that's probably
I think Albany and the nanotech that's still in the city.
Certainly, but it did. I mean, we're talking about demolishing and leveling dozens of row homes in order to make room for.
They should keep going and demolish more.
Well, you know.
That's Mark's.
I'm on that bed. I think our housing stock is woefully behind the times here.
Well, when you talk to urban planners in the city of Albany, that is something that they bring up. To have a 21st century, you need to have a 21st century housing stock. And a lot of them, some planners would argue that this is a great plan because you are, in fact, updating the housing stock in that area. One of the amendments to the urban renewal plan that Albany Med is seeking actually is to increase the number of housing units from what's called for in the plan, which is, I believe, 218, up to about 255 or 256. So they actually, the breadth of that plan even exceeds the scope of what was enacted into law by the city council. They're also looking for additions and changes to zoning to increase the height of several buildings that they want to build on New Scotland Avenue.
Well, they also have the ability to increase the patient pavilion that they just built another 4 floors if they want to.
Sure.
So they built it with a foundation strong enough to put on more levels instead of spreading out, go up. But are you finished with the Park South?
Well, I was going to say, that plan has been years in the making, and to the city's credit, they have engaged many of the people who live in Park South. I go to a monthly neighborhood association meeting there. There's always 20 to 30 people. City planners are there, representatives from the hospital, from Columbia BBL, to talk about the plan, to gauge input from residents. And I'm hopeful on some of the few sticking points that remain that we can reach accommodation and come to a mutual understanding on the height of those buildings on New Scotland, moving a local community garden into a different area instead of just paving over it. And I think that'll be accomplished, whether it's accomplished in the next 2 months while Mayor Jennings is still in office or in the first month of the new mayor's term.
Doesn't matter.
With a new council, I don't know.
It doesn't matter. But we're going to be losing, an iconic restaurant.
Valentine's
the
Quintessence.
restaurant, the Quintessence.
Yep.
We're losing that. We're going to be losing Valentine's. But then in another part of your district along Lark Street, you're also losing some more entertainment venues where DeJohn's and Legend Sports Bar are closing or have closed.
Yes.
So we're seeing fewer entertainment venues in your district. And your district used to be a hub of activity and...
Well, I would disagree with that, Mark.
Why? Why?
For example, Elda's shut down, and then 48 hours later we found out it was purchased by Will Fan, who owns Bangkok Bistro, which is incredibly successful.
So I didn't bring that, and they got Rain, who took over the Upper Hudson Plant.
Exactly. So for these restaurants that are supposedly closing, and I doubt they will be closed very long, you have new development in the area, the Larson Building on the corner of Madison, Lark, and Delaware.
Right. But I don't know what that means. The Larson Building, is it an office building?
It's going to be a mixed-use building with first-floor commercial, with residential on the top 2 floors. This is going to be brand-new development. Folks in the city and the surrounding area are taking notice in the neighborhood, and they want to invest their money here. The amount of money that's gone into renovating the old Planned Parenthood building, where Rain is set to open up November 18th.
Oh,
that is a tremendous investment in that actual structure. And Will Fan has invested hundreds of thousands of dollars into the LAX restaurant he's opening up at the former Elda. So I think there's a tremendous amount of development. You have Shogun on Madison Avenue.
You got all these wonderful...
Cafe 217.
Yeah. But, this was also before DeJohn's. It's a 288 Lark, right?
I believe he's at 88, and Legends is 82.
282.
Or 86 and 82. It's
whatever,
right
but when I was in college, 288 Lark was known just as the name 288 Lark. It was before your time. But they had this wonderful venue where we would go and party and have a wonderful time, and it didn't have any other name but the address of the building. And it was a great, but then that closed and it was vacant for a while. Then DeJohn's came and opened it up, and I don't understand. I mean, are you happy to see this go, or?
Well, I think, certainly.
Is it better for the neighborhood not to have it?
Certainly, they're his businesses, and it's his prerogative to keep them open or keep them closed.
No, but I'm asking you as someone who's into the quality of life in your...
Well, and that's been a major concern and source of contention in the neighborhood, is this notion of whether bars should remain open at 2 a.m., whether they should close at 3 a.m. or 4 a.m. In the Lark Street corridor, we have some bars and restaurants that can stay open till 4, some that must stop serving at 2.
So you're very good at describing the situation, but how do you come down on this?
Well, unfortunately, I think Mr. DeJohn, he tried to work with the neighborhood, and the neighborhood tried to work with him.
Okay, but how do you come? Should they close at 2 or should they close at 4?
Well,
how do you?
My mother, when I was a young kid, always told me nothing good happens after 2 a.m.
That's right.
And several years ago, the mayor voluntarily asked restaurants and taverns to close in this city at 2 a.m. after several police officers were injured late night down on Pearl Street. I don't think it's the most unreasonable thing to ask these businesses to stop serving alcohol at 2 a.m. Not necessarily close at 2, because obviously you want to give people some time to eat something or to take some time to get out of the facility. But I don't think that's unreasonable. If you look at many other municipalities throughout the state of New York, specifically counties, a lot of them have closing times of 1 and 2. And these are in big city areas: Rochester, Warren County, Syracuse, and Onondaga County. Albany, Albany is an anomaly in upstate New York in that we allow our restaurants and bars to stay open until 4 a.m.
All right, thank you.
Sure.
And Rabbi, I think think it's time.
Well, I
Give him
think
a
we're out
blessing.
of time,
He
but
needs
we
a blessing here. Really does need a blessing.
He's doing a good job.
I appreciate that.
Doing a good job.
I
but
can
we-
talk forever.
I know.
It's all right. Well, you're doing a lot of good things, and we continue to give you a blessing so can even do more good things for our county and our neighborhood. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rabbi. Always a pleasure. Thank you, Mark.
Okay.